Two, one. We are live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a business podcast on global PropTech, where we talk to PropTech founders and CEOs from all over the globe and learn from them how they are building successful PropTech companies. Today, I have an exciting guest with me, but before that, I would like to request all my audience out here, which I know are a lot of repeat audience, especially people on Spotify, people who have been coming back. We have the analytics as well. So if you're coming back, if you like our content, then please, if you're a YouTube audience, then hit that subscribe and like button here. It just helps the algorithm work better so that we reach out to more and more relevant people out there. And if you are on Spotify, please follow us on Spotify and hit that rating button. Again, the better the ratings we get, the better we are on the search algorithm in Spotify. So that's the only request from our end. We have reached a healthy 1,500 subscribers on both YouTube and Spotify. Spotify is still new, around 500 subscribers, but on YouTube we have had a good growth, around 1,300 subscribers already. So we are set to move these numbers rolling. So please support us on that. With that, let's welcome our guest today. Our guest is Sanjeev Vasisht. He's the co-founder and CEO at Propall. With Propall, sellers can avoid the long and tedious traditional processes and sell their apartments at the best price instantly. This is the template definition I got from the website, and Sanjeev here is going to demystify what they actually do. Sanjeev is he is the youngest ever to be selected for ISB's Emerging Leaders Program from IIM Calcutta, 23rd batch. He's a graduate from Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies. So very accomplished credentials there. With that, let's welcome Sanjeev. Sanjeev, welcome to PropTech Buzz. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Very excited. I was looking forward to these conversations early morning here from Germany. So all set here with my cup of coffee to learn from you from your journey. It's still been early days for you, but I'm sure there is a lot that you have learned from the market, from the due
For sure.
diligence,
Yeah.
everything that you have been doing. So very excited for this. So before we jump into Propal, how do you pronounce it, by the way?
Propall. Property
Propal,
for all. Propall.
property for all, Propal. Okay, got it. So before we get into the Propal, why don't we understand the transition story? Because I'm
Sure.
always fascinated by founders who decide upon an idea finally. Because I also, when I started PropTechBuzz, I went through multiple iterations. I mean, sometimes it is laughable at all the things that I wanted to do, right? So whenever there is a
Right.
founder, at any given point of time, there are multiple ideas. How did you come to this one idea of building Propal, and how did you, that founding story is always exciting. So
Right.
could you shed that light
Yeah.
on that?
So there are two reasons, right? So I have a SEBI license in securities operations and risk management. So I had a previous startup. It's called Zix, where we used to handle retail investors' portfolios and help them manage their risk.
I
Right.
see.
So there, what I understood was retail investors have access to almost every single investment avenue except real estate. Right. There are only three ways of making real estate accessible to all if they were to actually buy a home. Right. From an investment standpoint, you have alternative investments and then fractionalized investments. But if you were to buy a home for a young Indian professional, a millennial earning upwards of 10, 15 lakh rupees, right? His probably the only three channels from which he can invest into real estate is fractionalized investments or affordable housing that the government is also promoting slightly outside the city, or making financing more efficient, right? So we tried our hand with all of these three things, which is the best possible way for a young Indian professional to have access to home ownership, right? And then we finally realized that affordable housing is not what millennials prefer or want. They might look at it as an investment avenue, but never would live in it or occupy the asset as their home, right? And alternative investments, of course, is not a usable investment or usable real estate, right? So making financing more efficient became the problem to solve. And then we start thinking on how do you actually make financing more efficient, right? We used first principles to understand what the transaction actually is, right? And then we finally finalized on with that we need to make the financing efficient in order to make what do you call real estate accessible to all. But for that to happen, we'll have to make the transaction itself more efficient, and that's the reason we sort of came to this idea. There's another reason as well. We were, I mean, like anyone in their late 20s, you're constantly thinking about multiple ideas. You have hundreds of ideas in your head, right? So
Always,
I
yes.
was one of them. I was one of them as well. And then I
How
was
many
looking for.
how many ideas did you have?
I mean, I've started two businesses, but from an idea standpoint, I probably have at least 50 listed down on my notes
And
at
how,
all
how many
points in time.
how many domains did you have?
So from a domain perspective, I think they're very diversified. Across
Yeah.
50, they're probably across 30 domains,
Right. Yeah.
uh, right? But I'm primarily looking at either investing in them or starting a business in them, right? So at this point, I finalized on PropTech as a space.
Got it.
And why that happened is because from my understanding, disruption happens in an industry where all of the stakeholders have a problem with what is going on in the industry. That means the regulators are unhappy, the suppliers, where the companies or industries are unhappy, as well as the customers are unhappy. This is exactly the place where disruption happens. For
Right.
example, in the banking sector, right? Fintech was probably born, or neobanks are being born only because of the same exact reason. From regulators to customers, everybody is unhappy with the inefficiency. So that's we finalized on PropTech for the reason, and we already had a problem at hand, right, to solve. So that's probably the founding story of Propall.
Right. So let's unpack this. Right. So you mentioned something. Could you repeat that? I thought that was quite valuable. You said disruption happens when three things happen: when the customers are
Correct.
unhappy, when the regulators are unhappy, and what was the third one?
The customers, regulators, and the suppliers, the industries or companies which are supplying.
Okay. Okay. So this is a new thing that I learned. Okay. Could you give me an example other than this, or
Sure.
okay? Yeah.
So I'll give you some stats as well, right? So wherever disruptions happened previously. So for example, we consider cash as one what do you call asset class. We
Mhm.
consider gold as one more asset class, real estate as another asset class, stocks and mutual funds as another asset class. If we just take these four examples, cash right now, right? If you bank deposits, there are about $2 trillion worth of bank deposits in India, right? In Indian banks, basically. So if this had to be disrupted, banking had to be disrupted, the transaction had to become efficient, right? Banks existed from a long time,
Right.
but you still had to go to a bank, get a DD, or even for a passbook update, right? Go to a bank physically, get your passbook updated, and come back,
Right.
which is not the most convenient thing to do, right?
Right.
And in this scenario, bankers, of course, were unhappy because they weren't able to push out loans as quickly as possible or get in deposits as quickly as they wanted to.
Got it.
Regulators were unhappy because regulation was a huge challenge there. Customers were unhappy because of the inefficiency of the transaction as well as the physical, what do you call, effort that had to go into every single transaction that they wanted, be it
Right.
just updating their passbook or getting a loan from the bank. You had to be
Mm.
physically present in the bank, right?
Got it.
And that's where fintech came and disrupted the industry. Same thing in stock
Mm.
markets and mutual funds, right? In another
Got it.
asset class.
Right.
During COVID, I mean, you will know that everybody was an investor,
Hmm.
right? And everybody was an investor only because investing was so easy to do, right? You just had to install an application on your phone or log in into a website, complete your KYC, and then you could invest probably any amount of money that you had in your bank.
Right.
Same thing with gold. Even the government is pushing towards digitization of sovereign gold bonds. You can buy it online and then you can buy digital gold. But when it comes to real
Mm.
estate, that hasn't happened yet, right? There is still a
Mm.
lot of manual interference, transaction inefficiency, and this is exactly the asset class where disruption is set to happen.
Right.
It's just a matter of time and not a question if it will happen.
Got it. So let's talk, double down a bit about the inefficiencies and the challenges on the transaction
Right.
side a little more. And then I have some questions on your demographic because you mentioned about
Sure. Yeah.
young Indian professionals. So I think your focus is on the younger demographic for tomorrow.
You're
Okay,
right. Yeah.
go ahead. So let's talk about the
So
challenges, inefficiencies. Yeah.
Right. So in real estate, especially, right, like everybody knows in India at least, the transparency is very very low. It's a very low trust industry as such. The brokers don't trust the customers because they might bypass the broker. The customers don't trust the broker, and nobody trusts the developer, and that's why RERA had to come into the picture, where they brought in deadlines for completion of projects and everything else, right? So nobody trusts, no stakeholder trusts anybody else. But the biggest sort of surprise element here is that the transaction is inefficient because there are so many stakeholders in the journey of any seller or buyer, right? For example, if you were to sell a home in India, you probably, your best options today are listing platforms, right? But along with listing platforms, you probably would have engaged a couple of brokers, and you would have put in some sort of effort into marketing your own property in your first circle and second circle, right?
Right.
But it's nobody's job, a full-time job to sell their home.
Right.
It's what they're doing just to sell their home. They're putting in so much amount of effort, and on top of all this, you probably have to deal with an advocate to get the documentation in place, and then the registration component of it, and then the negotiation component. You put it on a listing platform, and you get bombarded by phone calls from multiple unknown people, all of
Mm.
which, all of whom who claim to be potential buyers.
Mm.
So for a company, you have pre-sales team and then sales team and marketing teams who can clean the lead for you. But as an individual, you don't really have that sort of resources at your disposal, right?
Mm.
So you will have to do all of the cleaning the lead work, which is a huge task for any individual, which is totally unnecessary as well.
Right.
Not only, I mean, there are some listing platforms who offer customer service,
Right.
but again, you have to eventually you have to deal with the end customer to sort of negotiate the price, right? You have, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to agree to the price,
Right.
and uncertainties are a huge challenge here again. The customer, I mean, the seller doesn't know exactly at what price he wants to sell. He also doesn't know at what price it will actually sell.
Right.
Right? He also doesn't know when it will actually sell.
Right.
So can you actually solve for these uncertainties?
Right.
Can So trust is something that will come over time, right? We can't tell we'll use technology to bring in trust. That's not really going to happen, right? But what we can do is mitigate all of the uncertainties. With
Right.
technology, we can solve for at what price your house will actually sell and at what time.
Right.
That's exactly what we are doing as well for sellers. We are building an artificially intelligent machine learning model which can predict what time your house will sell and exactly at what price.
Yeah, we'll come to the solution part.
Right.
We'll unpack one after another. Okay,
Sure,
we'll,
sure, sure.
we'll give due attention to each of the topics here. So you mentioned about the transparency. You mentioned about so
Correct.
many intermediaries in between. So, and
Correct.
also most of the listing platforms are mostly optimized for the developers, not for the convenience of the buyers, isn't it? So
So
that
there
is
are
also
listing platforms that are optimized for consumers as well.
as well, is
It's
it?
not like listing platforms are bad, but
Mm.
they're really efficient. But
Mm.
they're efficient to a certain extent, right? They don't
Right.
help you close the transaction.
Hmm. Got it.
The
Okay.
uncertainties still exist.
Got
For
it.
example, if you were a seller, there are only two things in your head, right? You want to sell your home at the highest price possible and in the
Hmm.
fastest time possible. No seller will come to you and tell that I want to sell my house at the lowest price possible. That's not going to happen ever.
Hmm. Right.
These
Right. Right.
uncertainties still exist with listing platforms.
Got it. Okay. So is that it? So that is the transaction piece and the inefficiency
Correct.
piece. Shall we move to the solution then? So
Sure.
you
Yeah.
you, you you spotted this challenge, and then how did you go about it? Like what kind of vision that you had to plug these holes and make it better?
Right. So we've sort of identified the inefficiency in the transaction, right?
Right.
Previously, we had a vision of making real estate accessible to all for the young Indian professional and everything. And so now it was about matching these two things.
Right.
How do you make the transaction more efficient so you can finance better? And if you finance better, young Indian professionals will be able to afford homes,
Hmm.
right? So this was the entire piece here. So which is just about matching all of these puzzles and building the bigger picture here. So with technology, right? So we were dabbling with multiple things. How do you actually make the transaction more efficient? So we spoke
Right.
to hundreds or thousands of brokers. We spoke to multiple developers, a lot of people in the prop tech space. And then what we understood was this problem is not really so easy to solve, right?
Hmm.
Zillow tried doing it in the US and it sort of failed and then had to roll it back. They sort of invented the iBuying model of sorts,
Mm.
where they bought homes on their balance sheet, and then you might be aware of this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Uh, so probably that's not the way of doing it. So we were just thinking of how do you more efficiently solve this problem,
Right.
and that's where we came up with building technology, right? Using technology, service, and integration to solve this
Mm.
exact problem.
Mm.
And what is technology, right? Is it just building a website and matchmaking on the website between the buyer and seller, or do you actually go beyond that
Mm.
with the what do you call artificial intelligent systems or models that have been existent from a long time but have gained some fame in the last couple of months? Do
Mm.
we make use of that and sort of build something that revolutionizes the transaction? So
Mm.
we were just thinking about all of these things, multiple things, and multiple what do you call pieces of knowledge given to us from a lot of experienced people in the real estate space.
Right.
And then what we thought was we'll build a machine learning artificial intelligent model which can predict when a house can be sold.
Mm.
That has its own challenges, but we probably will not go there because that's sort of our secret sauce on how we got real actual transaction data,
Right.
as well as when a house will sell. Like I said, the two problems are they want to sell at the highest price possible and in the fastest time possible. For that, we'll have to
Mm.
predict at what price it will sell, and we also have to predict when it will sell.
Right.
So this is the technology that we have developed.
Oh, nice. So you don't have to reveal the secret source. So I was also part of a data team where we had the automatic valuation model where we would
Okay.
input
Okay.
as much
Right.
data as possible for the properties and for the neighborhood data, and primarily because Europe has a ton of public data and
Right.
transaction data. You feed in, and then you put in an address of any property in that in a
Wow.
given
Okay.
country, and
Yeah.
then it would churn out the valuation model based on what are the parameters that you have sent and how
Correct.
you have trained it, and what is the coverage also, right? And then you
Correct.
also do an average of the similar properties, okay, similar
Exactly. Yeah.
properties
Yeah.
in the neighborhood within
Right.
say 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, with the same parameters, same properties, and then
Correct.
you do an average, and that's how you come up with a valuation model.
Exactly.
So you are predicting when a house will sell, and what is the second one? At what
At
price?
what price the transaction? So what you said, right? Which is this is that's where we exactly started off. You can exactly
Right.
predict what price, an average price for the home, right? If you want to suggest a price for the transaction, you can suggest this where they can use this price to negotiate with the other people.
Right.
But we'll have to go one step beyond and try to understand what price will it actually transact at, and that's
Hmm.
what we have done.
Right. Yeah. So there are some players in Europe who have done it. In India, primarily because they feel that this model is not required in a primary market. This is more for
Correct,
secondary market. So
for
could you
sure.
could you could you explain that dynamic, please?
Correct. So at this moment, we're operational only in the secondary market, right? The primary
Nice.
market like you said, it's not the developer sets the price for depending on the luxury home or mass premium home. They set the prices, so it's not required there at all.
Right.
What is required there is when they can sell it. If you build a society of 10,000 homes, you clearly want to understand which unit will sell first and which unit will sell last, so you can plan your marketing strategy accordingly. But we are operational in the secondary market.
Very good. Because yesterday I was talking to Abhijit, who is the founder of Gruhas. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
he also mentioned that yes, India is an emerging market. It is ripe for primary, but it is equally ripe for secondary. Okay,
Right.
so the potential is huge on both,
Correct.
and not many players are operating or doing any disruption in the secondary market. So if you are doing that, hats off to you, and congrats, because I have not yet heard anybody who's actually doing this, because they're driven by developers and
Correct.
activity on that side of the business. Excellent. So you have a similar model. So you have an AI model, and where you're training them with
Right.
data sets, and you are also looking at coverage in terms of, okay, which regions you'd want to train. Is it city based, state based, or how is it?
We are specific to Bangalore at the moment.
Okay, Bangalore.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. And talking about data, how much of data in India, like especially like in Europe, there are different countries which have different players. Like there are some transactions which are mandated to be made public. There are some
Right.
where third-party vendors are actually selling it. So how is transaction data's access in India today?
So today, the transact you have access to almost every single real estate transaction that happens.
Publicly.
So publicly, yes. So
Nice.
so the government is pushing towards digitizing all of the documents in the sub registrar's office. So
Nice.
I can sit at home and probably pull out all of the sale deeds and sale agreements, not sale agreements, sale deeds of all of the transactions that
Right.
have happened over the past 10 years,
Right.
right? So we have access to that, but not in every state.
Hmm.
That is still a challenge. It's not accessible in every state, but at least in majority of the cities, right, the top 8 cities in India, or
Hmm.
all the metropolitan cities, you have access to this data. So it's not very difficult to build it for tier 2 and tier 3 cities from there.
So how do you get access to it? It's just a public website, and it gives you the
Yeah, yeah.
CS.
So
You
the
just download.
government, the stamps and revenue departments of the government have their own website where you can enter the details of the property and pull out the documents. Anybody can do it to just check what the previous transaction value was or what the property was registered at and all those
No,
things.
how can you get the entire database, not individual properties, but the whole database
You
of all?
mean the entire 10-year database, is it?
No, no,
You
not the
mean
historic.
historical
I'm not
transaction?
talking historical data. I'm talking about say I need so Bangalore has what? How do divisions, right? So or
Correct.
pin codes, right?
By pin
So
code or what? Yeah.
yeah. So can I get all the data of all the properties in a given pin code? Download it.
Yeah, you can. So there are I mean, there are different sub-registrar's office for different pin codes, right?
Hmm.
On top of all this, all of these data is aggregated with the government and is on the website.
Got it.
So it depends on you on which locality and which kind of project that you're looking at.
Right.
It takes a couple of hours for you to pull out all of those things.
Got it.
But it's not rocket science, right? It's on the website. You can
Yeah,
figure
but
it
what
out.
what is the refresh rate of this information? Is government doing a good job in ensuring the accuracy? Like,
They're doing yeah. They're doing a pretty good job. So it's pretty accurate as well. So you find very recent transactions
so you
on the
keep
government
so you
websites.
keep you keep uploading every 3 months or 6 months from there. Is that how it is? What would it be?
So yeah, so we don't need to keep updating it, right? So for us, the historical data is more important because you can
Got
create
it.
a time series model.
Got
Uh,
it. Got it. Yeah.
Actual transaction value in the future is what we predict from the
Got
time
it.
series.
Exactly. 6 months for transaction. I don't think it would vary much. Okay.
Correct.
Maybe the timeline variation would be at least a year or 2 years.
Right.
Okay, got it. Yeah, but sometimes here in Europe it spikes every quarter. Okay,
That
so
happens. Yeah.
property rates just go up and down.
Yeah.
So it becomes the refresh rate becomes very important that you need to have it
Correct.
every
That's
quarter.
exactly what we want to train it for. For example, there was a slight dip in the property market in some localities because of flooding last year in Bangalore, right?
Right. Yes.
Which wasn't really an expected case. We never thought Bangalore would flood
Nice.
out of all places.
Mm,
There are spikes for which the model will have to be robust enough to train itself and
right.
understand these kind of spikes.
Yeah, because what happened for us was I was in a company exactly doing the same automatic valuation modeling, and then because of the spike post COVID, okay, so the housing market actually crashed, and as a result,
Okay.
our models were not trained to incorporate this sudden
Right.
dip, right? So it would show wrong valuations, okay, but the
Right.
market valuations have completely changed. So there were a lot of resistance, and customers, like, we would have banks who use our software, right? We would have big agencies that would use our
Correct.
software, big brokers and stuff like that, developers. So lots of customers, and they would complain, and then we would have to tell them that, hey, you know what,
Right.
this
Right.
is
Right.
this is the deviation and stuff like that. We have to inform it.
I think that might be a challenge if the source of data is just from one place. For us, we've
Mm,
diversified that to solve exactly this problem. So
right.
we have channel partners who give us real-time actual data.
Mm,
Because if you go to an apartment society, right, channel partners are basically brokers and other partners that we have in place.
mm,
Uh, what the broker tells you is the price of the apartment. So he's literally setting the price there,
got it.
right?
Got it. Got
So we have multiple sources of data, and we just don't rely on registry records, and that's helped us train the model in a more robust manner.
Got it. Excellent. So, is there anything else that you do other than building your own AI and ML model? What else? What else is part of your solution today and the vision tomorrow?
Yeah. So we are offering a full stack tech enabled solution today, right?
Mm.
Anybody wanting to sell their home can literally just answer a very gamified version of 8 questions on our website, and we can complete the entire transaction for them. And their physical interference will only be required when they're actually transferring the property documents,
So walk us
right?
through the experience. So somebody comes to know about Propal, and then they go to your website. Is
Sure.
that how it is? They just simply go to your website. They don't have to talk to anybody. Is that how it is?
Exactly. So, I mean, we have channel partners as well. They can come to us through our channel partners or directly come on to our website, answer a very gamified 8 questions, and then we give them a preliminary offer for their home, and we
Mhm.
also tell them when we can sell their home. Right? If that's acceptable, we complete the end-to-end transaction and complete the sale. Yeah, you can. This is exactly what
So,
I'm talking about.
so this is how it is. So it says complete in 3 steps. Enter property details. So that means property. What kind of property details would it ask for? Like, does
The
it ask
floor,
the
yeah,
the build
basic
date,
details.
how old the building is, and stuff like that? Or
Correct. Yeah.
okay, so you have said that 85 plus. So where here can the customers start interacting with you?
On top, yeah. Sell a home. You click on
Sell a
sell a
home.
home.
Okay, so if they want to sell a home, or they check your property value. Nice.
So
Oh, nice.
usually, yeah. So you
Okay.
can
Are you an
click on
existing
that and
user?
then select whichever apartment
Got
you
it.
would
I,
want
I
to
do,
choose.
yeah, I do not want to demo this in front of the audience and maybe put you in a spot if there is a bug or something of that sort. So I'll
No,
avoid that.
you can go through it. We
I can go through it. Okay, sorry, I did not ask your permission before showing it. Okay, so and then enter property details to sell your property now, and then you say for new users start here. Okay, yes, I'm a new user. Select your property.
can
Oh, so
select
there are
whichever property. Yeah.
okay, so there is a select and then okay, and then I do okay, and then enter the area of the property. Okay, so if
In
you
square
say
feet.
square meter, a square feet, is it?
Square
So what
feet.
what would be an average square feet? Say
1,600 square feet on an average.
okay, 1600, and then I say okay, number of bedrooms. I like this.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with such an interaction. Say for example, it's a three bedroom. Number of parking spots, say one, and then age of the property. Exactly, this is what I was asking. Say it's a 10 to 15-year old property. Type your name, say Ravi, and then your contact number. Exactly. I wish I could give a random number.
You can enter a test number. You can enter 99. Yeah.
Okay, and then I gave say my number. Okay, so I submit it. Okay, so this is how a lead
Yeah.
generation. I will tell you, this is a standard interaction here in Europe,
Correct.
especially for brokers and agencies, where they get leads. Okay, so what
Correct.
they offer this as lead generator, and then they send them a very vague valuation range. Okay, so
Right.
that the user is aware that okay, my property is in this range, and then now they are interested because now they are hooked into this idea. They're interested. They talk to them, and they discuss more so that they win the mandate of the broker to sell that property on that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I get that. So once this is done, what happens after this?
So this data goes into our algorithm, right? So we figure out with these specifications, what can this house be sold at,
Hmm.
right? And that's exactly what we arrive at. So we arrive at a particular valuation. We don't give them a range. We give them an actual specific valuation, right? And then we start off with the process. So we give them, that's a preliminary offer that we give home
Hmm.
sellers. But there's another thing that we have to consider, right? Here, a lot of parameters haven't been considered. For example, what is the proximity to employment hubs, right? Or what is the proximity to the nearest school?
Right. So there is no dearth of parameters that you can add. Okay. So
Correct.
that is ever
Exactly.
growing. The more parameters you add, the more accurate the valuation will be. However, your valuation model is also varying from. I'll tell you how it is in the market. So there are many AVMs here in Europe, but every
Right.
AVM has a distinct set of parameters, and
Correct.
they have to define to the world how this AVM is this valuation is calculated on what kind of parameters. Because if you do not define, then it's hard for the audience to understand how accurate it
Correct.
is.
For sure.
So that's how it works in the US as well, also in Europe as well, and then that's why there is a place for different kinds of AVMs uh,
Correct.
with different kinds of parameters. So
Yeah.
you are saying that you come up with a valuation with certain parameters, and you are going to be adding
Correct.
more and more
So
parameters.
we'll have to do one in-house home inspection, right? Because unlike US and Europe, India is a slightly different market. People like customizing their home a little bit more, right?
Mm,
Somebody who wants to put Italian marble on the flooring will go ahead and do it.
right,
Whereas in the US and Europe, they probably stick to a standard home that they would have got from the realtor, or it's basic stuff that they do, but majority
right,
would be the same. The distinction from one home to another in the same apartment complex will be very less.
right,
But in India, that isn't the case, right? So we'll have to do
right,
a one in-house home inspection that we conduct, where we have our proprietary parameters again on what we
right.
need to check and what we don't have to check.
Yes.
Because just for an example, someone's putting Italian marble, spending of a few $100,000, and of course that person's going to expect higher valuation, right? You can't give them a
Yeah.
standard valuation to what his neighbor would have got without an
Yeah.
Italian marble. So
Yes.
those are things that we have to consider. But does the buyer want Italian marble? We don't really
Mm.
know. That's where the machine learning comes in the picture and artificial intelligence comes into the picture.
Very nice. I'm very happy and excited to talk to somebody who is operating, who's building an AVM model in India. Okay, so what happens after this experience? So he fills this information.
Right.
Somebody, he wants to sell this apartment or a house, fills this, and then what? How do you reach out to them with give them a valuation, or they will
Correct.
receive this valuation on their email ID? How does it work out?
So we do both. We also reach out to them, and they will receive a valuation from us on their email address. So we pick an appointment from them for an in-house home inspection, and then
Right.
we give them a final offer based on the parameters that we consider in the home inspection process.
Hmm.
Because we want, like I said, transparency is something that doesn't exist, right? That's what we
Hmm.
want to bring in,
Hmm.
and it'll happen only with time. So
Hmm.
after the home inspection, why we do the home inspection, like I told you, this is one of the reasons, and the other
Hmm.
thing is we also have to tell the buyer, right, that this is the case with the home. If some
Hmm.
wall is leaking or there's a
Hmm.
seepage in some wall, we can't
Yeah.
just cover up with paint and the buyer buys it and then he feels that there is seepage, right? Then there are
Hmm.
companies offering 3 months seepage warranty and then things, but how
Hmm.
useful is that actually, right?
Yeah.
The transparency is what's important.
Yeah. So there is another important element here, which I'm sure you have considered, but if you have not, this is really good. So here you are catering to a motivated seller. Okay.
Correct.
However, there are lots of passive sellers who
You're
do
right.
not actively looking to sell, but they
Correct.
would be definitely willing to sell if they know that the valuation of the property has spiked.
You're
Okay,
right.
so this is something that companies here do. So what they do is they have leads, and they keep sending them every 6 months a status of the valuation of the property. So
Correct.
even if they're passive, they get this very nice envelopes or emails. Okay, it's like marketing emails, and out of all these, there's somebody who gets excited, seeing that the property's valuation has gone up, and now he
Correct.
is he is willing to sell it. Because usually, because of the hassles of selling your apartment, the transaction is not that easy, isn't it? So people do not exchange their properties like stock.
Correct.
So with this ease of information, and as you said, the information arbitrage that they have in their hands now, they are now more motivated, and as a result, you will contribute to more transaction sales in a country like India.
You're
So
right.
that,
And not only that, I mean, humans are curious, right? We have the check the value of your home as another
right.
button just for that reason.
like a
We
stock,
don't,
like a stock. What is the stock value of my house?
yeah, yeah. Just come
So
and check the value. Yeah, yeah.
yes, and people would be willing to. I mean, if you become one of those prominent players, people, it would be habit forming for them to keep checking
Correct.
their valuation and stuff like that. So excellent. Are there other players who are playing similar games
Yeah, there
here?
are a couple of other players who are doing something similar. But from a
Okay,
tech standpoint, right, we feel we are significantly ahead of every other player who's trying to solve this. But like I said, this problem is real, right? Everyone's trying to make the transaction more efficient.
right.
Like you also mentioned, this industry is ripe for disruption. So there are
Mm,
multiple solutions to solve the same problem, but from a technology standpoint, nobody's really solving it from a future proofing or future proof technology standpoint.
So help me understand one more thing. This is also very important because I've worked with AVM company.
Yeah,
Uh, the person on ground, the broker on the ground, will always beat an AVM. Okay, so because
correct.
he would do physical inspection, he would be able to find a more accurate
For sure. Yeah,
valuation.
yeah.
So I'm talking about these players who do it on scale. So today you are actually sending a person to the field, and you are helping them transact. So you are actually doing that. So your model would be a mix of tech and
Correct.
on the field, right? So then you would
You're
do
right.
some adjustment
That's
and
exactly
come
what
up.
I meant by technology, service, and integration. Right.
Right. So
So
if you have to make changes on your valuation eventually, all right, say for example you come at X and you go to the ground and you see the interiors and stuff like that, and you incorporate
correct.
that parameters and you change it by X plus 10% or something of that sort, which a broker without tech would anyways arrive at. So what is the, so even though tech is helpful,
Yeah,
what is the bigger advantage that you're offering to a physical broker who can do the same,
correct.
spending an
So there are,
hour or two
yeah,
hours?
I think there are, I'll break it down into two different sections, right? So this exact same question. So one is from the broker's point of view, and the one is from our point of view. When the broker is able to do it without tech, why do we actually have to create tech for it, right?
Tech, exactly, yeah.
So exactly. So what we're trying to do is actually trying to solve the problem of transparency here. So for a broker, although he can arrive at a ballpark figure or
Hmm.
the actual figure as well,
Hmm.
he can't really promise that price. Can he promise the price that I will give you exactly X value
Hmm.
because I know these are the problems or these are the perks of owning this home. So
Hmm.
I promise you this value, which a broker will never do, right? He'll tell you that I'll try my best to give you this value.
Right,
What you'll end up doing is waiting a longer period to get a higher price.
right,
But that's exactly what we are solving. We can promise the exact value and we
right,
can close the transaction significantly faster.
right,
And from a broker's point of view,
right,
uh, the challenge with brokers is they're usually individuals or even if they're teams, for their working capital cycles are very, very long,
right,
right? In at least in India, brokers who transact homes less than 3 to 4 crores
right,
are not really the people who sign actual registered documents with you saying, okay, you pay me X amount of brokerage.
right,
Right? Although it's an unsaid rule that you pay 1 to 2% of brokerage in Bangalore,
right,
no broker is going to come to you saying, okay, you got to sign this document and you got to pay me so much when the actual transaction happens.
right.
So it's only works on some level of what do you call confidence in the other person that he's actually going to pay me when the transaction happens,
Yeah.
right?
So that is true, and also you will have an advantage over a non-tech broker because you can show the trends on paper. Okay, so the thing is,
Correct.
the way it happens here on the ground is brokers. There's a lot of competition on the ground, right? So each broker is fighting for that mandate. How do they fight? They fight by showcasing their expertise on the ground. So
Right.
they use the software to print great looking PDFs and charts on
Correct.
neighborhood data, property data, neighborhood data, traffic, demographic, pollution, sound, and
Right.
and then beautiful looking charts and graphs that
Yeah.
the software gave it, and then they print these charts. They go
Yeah.
out and they give it to the customer. Customer is just blown away with all the research, which the ground broker will not have all that data. The ground
Correct.
broker might have that information within the walls of the house,
Correct.
but how will he get data at scale that tech
For
player?
sure. Yeah. The tech and accessibility to all of this data is a challenge again for local brokers in India. The other
Right.
challenge is for the broker himself, right? What if we love brokers, right? Brokers cannot be mitigated. We've understood that. At least from the past 10 years, there are multiple companies that you might have seen who are trying to mitigate or
No,
throw
you
away the
cannot.
middleman and trying to solve the transaction and
Not in real
matchmaking
case.
between buyer and seller. It's not going to happen anytime soon,
Yeah.
at least in the next couple of decades, right? So the broker is an integral part of this entire transaction. And how do you sort of strengthen that process and make it more efficient is what we're trying to do. So with brokers also, for them, like I said, working capital cycle is a huge problem. They don't know exactly what time the house will actually sell, so they're working on some project, but their opportunity cost is so high because they can probably close some other transaction significantly faster and get their brokerage.
Hmm.
The other problem with them is the advance amount is paid from
Right.
the buyer pays the advance amount to the seller, and
Right.
then you really don't know when the buyer will actually close a transaction because you don't have control over getting the loan for the buyer,
Right.
right? Will his loan get approved? When will it get
Ah,
approved?
got it. Got it.
When will he
Yeah, yeah.
pay
This
the
is a big challenge. Yes, this is a big challenge.
right?
And sometimes
So
the deal is stuck because the loan is
correct.
not approved and stuff like that.
Correct. So we are helping brokers here, and that's the reason brokers are very very happy to partner with us because they not only do they get paid earlier, but also the what do you call assurance that this transaction will actually close at this price is also certain for them. The
Hmm.
uncertainties for them are also going significantly lower, right?
Right.
And we handled the entire customer service for them. They don't have to go probably go to the site and show home. They can grow their business with us. We're not
Right.
limiting them from stopping their business elsewhere, right? So we are helping them grow their business, and that's the reason they're very happy to partner with us as well.
So help me understand what's the dynamic of secondary transactions on the ground with brokers, like in Europe and US, they have to get the mandate signed. Okay, that
Right.
means there is one broker who gets the mandate to sell this from the landlord. Once the landlord said yes, I'm happy to do the deal with you, that's how they sign it. How does it happen? It's still unstructured, I suppose, in India, no?
It's very unstructured here, right? Realistically speaking, most of the brokers in the secondary space are not full-time brokers. That's not their full-time profession, right? Because
Mm, right.
there is significant amount of uncertainty with respect to how many deals will you get, from where will
Mm,
you generate those leads.
mm,
Do you actually want to invest in some software or some platform which gives you the leads and clean those leads yourself,
right.
right? So most of them are not full-time brokers. They have a full-time profession. They also do this whenever they get a lead.
Right.
For those who do, those who are full-time brokers, the RERA registered brokers, right? They usually charge between 2 to 3%. But again, a mandate per se isn't really signed by anybody in India at least.
Right. Uh, Excellent. So what's your business model, by the way? So how do you
We
make
charge, we
revenue?
charge a fee for sellers trying to sell through us. It's a nominal fee that we charge. For the buyer, again, it's an even significantly lower fee that we charge,
Hmm.
equivalent to what they would end up paying with any other brokerage firm or individual broker.
And what would be that commission?
It ranges from 1 to 2%.
Okay,
That's how much we charge.
got it. Excellent. And primarily, your customer is the seller.
Correct. We're trying to create clean supply. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is no engagement with the broker here.
No, so we have channel partners. So the channel partners bring us sellers as well and buyers.
Nice,
So we have multiple channel partners, but we are a platform and we're here to create clean supply.
nice, nice, nice. Excellent. And how long has Propal been in the market now? Is it 8 months or 6 months?
Yeah, so the concept was born quite some time ago. We are operational from the past 3 months, and we've seen significant amount of positive response in the past 3 months. Another interesting stat that we recently figured out was there is more buying demand than selling demand in Bangalore, at least in certain pockets. That is
Uh-huh.
something we didn't expect.
Okay.
So there are interesting stats that we are finding out.
Okay, more buying demand. So you are making commissions for both buyer and seller. Is that how it is, or?
Correct. So there is a very nominal fee we charge buyers, and
Okay,
ranges from 1 to 2% for the seller.
I see. Got it. Cool. So what has been your so anything that is new and disruptive like yours has to go through market education and stuff like that, right? So what has
Correct.
been your go-to market strategy, and what has been your customer education and awareness strategy for you? And how did you say get your first early customers?
Right. So, I mean, like you said, customer education is something that's very critical for something that's very, very new in the market, right? But
Correct.
luckily for us, people also want significant having exactly the problem that you have, and we're
Sanjeev,
solving it. Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, Sanjeev. I
Sure.
accidentally bumped you out of the room for the last 30 seconds or so. Could you repeat what you said?
Sure, 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 sure.
Sorry about that.
No, no problem at all. Yeah, so what I was saying is customer education for us was not a huge challenge as we thought it was, because customers really wanted this sort of a more tech-enabled, streamlined experience, right?
Right.
So for us, customer education per se was not very difficult. How we found our first customers was directly on our platform. We
Right.
were surprised that without any sort of marketing, we got organic customers and we transacted with them directly from the website and our channel partners, of course. About 30% of all customers we get are from our channel partners, and 70% is from a website that we've developed.
So when you say channel partners, what what kind of channel partners are they? Are they brokers on the ground? Is that how it is? Or
Yeah, the brokers on the ground.
got it. Okay, excellent. And let's talk about your founding. Say, how did you? So, did you have any backers to this idea? Like, did you have any angel investors already? Like, how did you fund your
Yeah, yeah.
early?
So we received quite some amount of soft commitments, considering the three founders, and we have a significant amount of connections who are willing to invest in new age companies. But what we wanted to really sort of do, and what we believe in, right, is trying to achieve some sort of product market fit, and then moving towards fundraising or focusing on fundraising, right?
Got it.
I mean, solving the core problem is what matters to us. Fundraising will eventually happen if your idea is good and you're building a good business. You will eventually receive funds. There is no two ways about it. But so we wanted to achieve product market fit first and never receive any or never take any money
Right.
before that, and that's what we've stuck to as well.
Got it.
We bootstrapped it until I mean, even now we're bootstrapping it because we want to achieve some significant traction,
Right.
get some real numbers rolling in, and then take money from anybody external from the company.
Got it. Excellent. I think that's a great way to go. Once you have significant traction, you get better valuation
Correct.
and stuff like that. Okay. Let's talk about this. Is you said this is your third startup?
Second.
Second startup, right? So as a second next founder, you obviously gain confidence. However, you'd many founders prefer to have advisory board and mentors and stuff like that.
Correct.
So other than your two founders, do you have you created a support system around you? Because this is a business podcast,
Sure.
right? So other entrepreneurs are also taking lessons from you. What would be your thoughts around that?
No, yeah, definitely. We have an advisory board of over four advisors. And we feel having an advisory board, people who have been there and done that, guiding you is very, very important, right?
Mm,
Like all of us know, I mean, you would have heard it in multiple places as well, that there is knowledge in everything that you do, and you can gain knowledge from everything. But it's easier said than done. Getting knowledge, I mean, consuming knowledge from everything is not as easy, right?
that's correct.
But there are some people who can actually guide you and help you make lesser mistakes.
Right.
Of course, we will have to make X amount of mistakes to learn something and realize that okay, shit, is not the right thing to do, and then move on from it and do the right thing. But someone who can help you make lesser mistakes and give you those sort of learnings significantly faster can accelerate your growth,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
And that's exactly how having an advisory board has helped us.
Right.
And we feel it's very, very important because sometimes the three of us the three founders, we go so deep into solving the problem that we sort of forget the first principles of it,
Got it. Yeah.
which shouldn't happen. I mean, ideally, that shouldn't really happen, right? So, if there is someone who has a different point of view, who sees a bird's eye view of the problem, and tells you that probably you're too deep into this and you're not really solving on the actual problem, and you've moved on to a different tangent, is very, very important to us. And I feel anybody who's sort of building any business, right, uh, needs to seek some sort of advice from someone who's done it before or who's been in a similar situation, so they can help you avoid certain mistakes that they might have made and just accelerate your growth.
Very nice. Again, a very question that many founders ask: when you get these advisors on board, what are the kind of commitments or what are the kind of expectations that you offer them for their time
Right.
and energies to you? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so it all depends on your relationship with your advisor, right? If you know them personally and you have a very long relationship with them, you probably don't have to offer them anything in monetary terms,
Hmm.
right? But there needs to be some sort of value add from your end and from their end, because they're giving you their time, which is of value, right?
Right.
There needs to be some value addition, but doesn't have to be in monetary terms all the time.
Right. Got it. Okay, cool. So what's your post? So you're bootstrapping it. You are gaining traction. What's your vision like for this in the near term or mid-term, long term? Where do you see this
Yeah.
going here?
So yeah, I mean, near term and mid term, of course, is to complete as many transactions as possible. I mean, give access to home ownership to as many millennials as possible, and make financing more efficient, right? But going forward, we have a larger vision. We want to sort of do financing ourselves, sort of make the transactions are super efficient, as well as bring in things like title insurance, which is non-existent in India. But the market isn't ready yet for those kind of things, and it'll
What
take a
what do you
couple of
what do
years
you,
at least.
what do you mean by title insurance?
So property titles have insurance, right? So in India, you might have heard multiple stories. I hope it's not happened to you, because it's a pretty common thing that you buy a property and somebody else comes and claims it and goes to court and it stays there in court,
Oh
right?
yes, 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 yes. India
Uh,
is infamous for that. Yes, every
right,
family, I'm sure there is one story.
for sure.
Same here with
Yeah.
me as well. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So insurance, I mean, you can cover that for insurance, cover that with insurance, but the market today isn't really ready for that sort of disruption in that space. But
Got
that
it.
is something we're looking at. We want to develop there are multiple problems in the same avenue that we can solve and make life significantly easier and simple for all the stakeholders in the prop tech space or in the real estate space. And that's exactly
Mm.
what we want to do going forward, as well as apart from making real estate accessible to all.
Nice. I'm actually talking to OB. OB is a company that raised 250 as Series B. They are
Okay.
doing landlord insurance. I'll have to check. He's going to be the
Right.
founder is going to be on my podcast. We'll see if we can draw some parallels there. But hey, Sanjeev, this is awesome. I loved this conversation. I got very excited because it was familiar territory for me. I was actually
Right.
working on an AVM company here in Europe, and we were covering around 10 countries here. So we had
Wow.
excellent coverage. So like any property, any unit you put as an address, it would throw AVM. So that's why
Wow.
it got
Right.
me
Right.
engaged on this. So but I'm so excited because of all the conversations. So I do these podcasts globally, global founders, but as luck would have it, in the last month or so I've been on a marathon spree with a lot of Indian founders,
I've
and this
noticed. Yeah. Yeah.
and this is the first time I'm actually talking to somebody who is solving for a secondary market, and it's a big space to be disrupted. And so
You're
very
right.
happy to know about this, and all the best for your
Thank you
future.
so much.
And we'll stay in touch. And thank you for
Definitely.
being on my show and, and,
This
and
was
sharing.
great. Thanks for your time, and all the best for your podcast as well. Thank you
See you
so
around.
much.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.